A cop tried to throw my kids and me out of the building I own. He had his hand on his belt, his voice in my hallway, and a look on his face like my very existence needed to be justified. Tell me something. How do you prove you belong in a place you already built your whole life around? My name is Denise Hall, and this is the night a racist cop tried to evict a black family from their own building and accidentally exposed the real criminal hiding in the shadows. By the end of it, we had one cop stripped of his badge, the former owner's son in cuffs, and my kids standing in the middle of a scene that felt like a movie, even though it was just our Tuesday night. If it were you, what would you have done? Let me take you from the beginning. It started stupidly normal. That's the part that still gets me. The house smelled like ground beef and cumin, leftover tortillas, lime juice drying on cutting boards. Jordan had one headphone in, pretending he wasn't watching videos on his phone. Maya was at the fridge, carefully lining up her new crayon drawing under the old ones, like her art gallery was the most important thing in the world. The dishes were stacked. The kitchen light was soft, and in my head, I was doing landlord math, property taxes plumber, that still hadn't called back the leak in 4B, that I thought I finally had under control. It was one of those evenings where nothing is perfect, but everything is fine. The kind of night you don't remember later unless something comes along and burns it into your brain. The first knock was nothing. Just a simple tap on the door. The kind of knock that makes you think a package got delivered to the wrong unit, or a neighbor locked themselves out. I didn't even react at first. I had my hands in warm, soapy water, watching a little swirl of oil run down the drain, thinking about whether I should repaint the stairwell in spring or wait until summer. The second knock came a little harder, a little faster. Not angry, just impatient. I grabbed a towel, dried my hands, and started walking down the hallway, calling out, "Hold on, I'm coming." Then the third knock landed. It wasn't a knock anymore. It was 3 hard bangs that shook the frame, followed by a voice that didn't belong to anybody who lives here. "Police, open up." No proof of occupancy. Just like that. No hello, no name, no explanation. Just prove you belong. If you've ever had to deal with police and you're black, you probably know this feeling. There's a part of your body that wakes up all at once, even if your brain is telling you that you did nothing wrong. My heart kicked into a higher gear. Every little safety conversation I'd ever had with my kids flashed through my mind. Jordan had come halfway down the hallway without me even calling him one earbud. Dangling shoulders squared like he was ready but not sure for what. Maya was still in the kitchen doorway, fingers gripping the wall, eyes wide, like she knew something big had just walked into our night. I stopped at the door, took one deep breath, and looked through the peephole. I never just opened the door at night, not even on normal days. And this already didn't feel normal. Through that little glass circle I saw him. White man, maybe late 40s, thick shoulders, uniform, just a little too tight. Jaw clenched like he'd been mad since 1998. Gray, buzz-cut cheeks already flushed. The kind of face that makes you think of Sir Calm Down videos on the internet. His hand was resting on his belt, not quite on the gun, not quite away from it either. Name tag said Reeves. I unlatched the chain, opened the door about a foot, kept my body between him and my kids. "Good evening, officer," I said, doing my best to sound calm and neutral. "Can I help you?" He didn't answer my question. Instead, he took one heavy step forward, his boot landing across my threshold like he'd been invited. "Are you Denise Hall?" he barked. Like my name was something he needed to get past, not a person. "Yes," I said, "I'm Denise. What's going on?" "You need to prove this is your residence," he said, well, sharp and loud, like he wanted the whole floor to hear. "We got a call about unauthorized occupants. Show me paperwork now. ID, lease something. Or we remove you from the premises." That word, unauthor, Authorized bounced around my skull like a bullet. I manage that building. I fix the heat when it goes out. I argue with contractors and fight with the city over inspection dates. My name is on every letter, every notice, every check that leaves my account. I know every kid who runs down those stairs, who slams which door, who burns what for dinner, on which night. But to him in that moment, none of that mattered. All he saw was a black woman in an apartment he assumed she couldn't possibly own. "Do you think that's fair, officer?" I said, keeping my voice low, because I know how fast things can spiral when black voices get labeled angry. "Who made the report?" He made this little sound like a half snort, half laugh. "Doesn't matter," he said. "You produce proof, or you and those kids are out of here. Hands where I can see them while you get the paperwork." There's a particular kind of humiliation that comes with having to prove the obvious. It doesn't show up in dramatic ways at first. It's in how your kids look at you confused, like, "Why is he talking to you like that, Mama?" It's in the way you have to narrate your movements in your own hallway, so some stranger with a badge doesn't get nervous. I raised my hands a little higher where he could see them. "Okay," I said. "I'm going to reach into that drawer right there by the door. That's where I keep my documents. Is that all right?" He nodded once, chin-jerking eyes, never leaving my hands. Jordan edged closer behind me. Maya took one small step back, like she was trying to disappear into the wall. I opened the drawer and pulled out the thick blue folder that holds half my life. Lisa's bank statements, business registration tax records, copies of repair receipts, and most importantly, a crisp legal document with a city seal and my name in black ink. The deed. I turned back, holding the folder out. "Here," I said, "this has everything you're asking for." He didn't take it. Instead, he leaned further into the doorway, eyes sweeping across my living room, landing on the kids' backpacks, the shoes by the wall, the crayon drawings, the half-folded laundry on the couch. You could see the story he'd already written in his head, the one where none of this belonged to me. "You keep it neat," he said finally. And somehow he made that sound like suspicion, not a compliment. "It's my home," I said, "and my business. I manage this place. I live in 3B. I've got the deed in here too." That last part slipped out. I hadn't planned to say it yet. But there's something about being challenged in your own doorway that makes the truth want to jump straight to the front. His eyes snapped back to mine. "You've got what?" "The deed," I said, steady. "To the building. The title is in my name. I own this property." Time paused for a second. Jordan's breath caught behind me. Maya's hands went still against the wall. Something flickered in his face. Not respect, not yet, but something like confusion. "You're telling me you own this building?" he said slowly, like the words tasted wrong in his mouth. "Yes," I repeated. "I'm the owner. You can read it yourself." I flipped open the folder, slid out the thick document with the seal, and held it out. He took it this time, but he did it like the paper had offended him personally. His eyes scanned, hesitated. At my name dropped to the phrase, "sole owner." You know that feeling when a fact walks right up and slaps somebody's prejudice in the face? Yeah, that happened. There was a beat where he could have chosen to step back, apologize, do the reasonable thing. He could have said, "All right, ma'am, thank you for your cooperation. Sorry for the inconvenience. We'll look into this call." That would have been the end of our story. But that's not the night we had. Instead, his jaw tightened. "I'm going to need to verify this," he said. "Until then, no one goes in or out. We're securing the scene. Keep your hands visible." It was like the deed wasn't proof to him. It was a challenge. There's a difference between enforcing the law and needing to be right. I was looking at a man who cared much more about the second. Before I could answer, a voice floated up from the stairwell. calm, irritated, and familiar. "Officer Reeves, what are you doing in my building?" Pattern interrupt. The whole hallway shifted. I leaned a little to the side and saw Marcus halfway up the stairs. Canvas bag from the community center on his shoulder brows pulled together. He's not tall, not especially muscular, but he has this grounded presence, like the guy you want at every tenants meeting. Because he doesn't yell, he just doesn't move. He looked from Reeves to me to my kids, taking in the whole scene in about 2 seconds. "Sir, you need to step back," Reeves snapped. "This is an active investigation. In my neighbor's doorway with her kids behind her with no warrant in your hand," Marcus said. His voice wasn't loud, but it carried. "That doesn't look like an investigation to me. That looks like intimidation." He looked at me and I could read the question in his eyes. "Are you okay? Do you want me here? Do we need to escalate?" "I'm fine," I said, though my pulse was still racing. "He says we have to prove we live here." I showed him the deed. Marcus's gaze dropped to the paper in Reeves's hand, then back up. "So let me get this straight," he said, turning slightly toward the hallway, where other doors were starting to crack open. "The building owner is standing in her own apartment. Her name is on the title, and you're threatening to remove her and her kids from the premises." A mug appeared on the railing above us, steam curling upward. Rita from 1A poked her head out, phone already in hand. The old man from 4B leaned on his doorframe, arms crossed. Mrs. Crowley peered from the first-floor landing. You could feel the shift from isolated fear to public attention. Reeves' eyes flicked from face to face, then up to the phones. You could see him calculating, realizing this wasn't going to be one of those quiet little incidents that disappear into the carpet. "I received a call about possible squatters," he said louder, like he wanted the recording to catch that part. "I'm here to confirm whether these individuals are authorized or not." Marcus shook his head. "She's the one who signs my rent checks," he said. "You want to confirm something? Maybe start by listening to her, instead of treating her like you caught her climbing in through the window." I felt something in my chest loosen just a little. It's one thing to know your neighbors like you know their laundry days. It's another to see them step out and stand next to you when it counts. "Officer, I said you asked for proof. I gave you proof. I'm not refusing to cooperate. But if you're going to keep standing in my doorway like this, I'd like to call someone too." He looked annoyed. "You can call whoever you want, ma'am. Doesn't change the fact that until I'm satisfied, nobody moves." That's when Marcus pulled out his phone and stepped one stair down, speaking low but clear. "Hey, Tanya, it's Marcus. We've got a situation on Linden again." "Yeah, in front of Denise's apartment. Police demanding proof from the landlord, threatening to remove her and the kids. Half the building is watching. Cameras are rolling. Can you get here?" Just saying her name made me feel better. Tanya Brooks is a civil rights attorney who runs tenant rights workshops at the community center, 2 blocks away. She knows our building, knows our people, knows exactly how many times police cars have parked in front of our steps for noise complaints that turned out to just be black kids existing. Marcus listened, then nodded. "We'll keep recording," he said. "Hurry." You know that moment when you realize you're not actually alone, even though 15 minutes ago you were just washing dishes and thinking about the electric bill. That's where I was standing. Minutes stretched. Reeves kept flipping through my folder like he was hunting for a reason to say no. He'd stare at a line, frown, look up at me, then at the kids, then at the hallway, like reality kept disobeying his expectations. Then the front door downstairs opened, and everything tightened again. A woman in a navy coat stepped into the lobby, looked up the stairs, and started walking. She wasn't rushing, but there was a purpose in her stride, heels tapping in a steady rhythm. It silenced the whispers on each landing as she passed. "Tanya." She reached our floor, scanned the scene. Cop in the doorway, kids behind me, neighbors on the stairs. Phones out. deed in his hand, and you could see her decide exactly which role she was about to play. "Officer Reeves," she said, voice calm but sharp as glass. "Step away from this family. You're outside of protocol, and you're being recorded from at least 8 different angles." He blinked surprised, then bristled. "Ma'am, this is police business. I suggest you step aside." "No," she said, not raising her voice, just tightening it. "You arrived here with no warrant, no visible probable cause, demanded proof of residency from the building owner, and threatened to remove her children from their home based on a biased report. That's not police business. That's harassment. And before you say anything else, your precinct supervisor is already on his way." You could feel that land in his gut. His rookie partner shifted uncomfortably behind him, eyes darting between Tanya and all the phones. "Sir," the younger officer muttered, "maybe we should wait outside for the lieutenant." Reeves's cheeks flushed deeper. Pride is a dangerous fuel. He straightened, tried to regain control. "I got a call," he insisted. "We take every report seriously. She could be lying about owning this place. Paperwork can be faked." Or Tanya said, folding her arms. "Someone with a grudge and a badge bias could decide a black woman doesn't look like she belongs in a building like this and go fishing for a reason to drag her out. Which is more likely, you think." She looked past him at the neighbors. "Any of you ever seen this woman before?" she asked, nodding at me. Hands went up, heads nodded. Voices chimed in. "She's the landlord. She fixed my sink last month. She's been here for years." Meanwhile, my kids were pressed up behind me, taking all of this in. Jordan had my arm in a grip that was going to leave marks. Maya's chin was touching my shoulder. I had given them the talk. How to act around police, how to keep their hands visible, their voices calm, their answers short. But I never meant for them to get the full live demonstration in our own hallway. Sometimes life does not care what you meant. That's when the elevator dinged again. The doors slid open, and out stepped Lieutenant Harris. Tall, broad black, wearing a precinct jacket and an expression that said he'd already gotten the summary over the radio and was not thrilled about it. He took in the sight in one sweep. Me, my kids, Reeves, Tanya, the neighbors, the phones, the deed in his officer's hand. And the temperature seemed to change a little. "Reeves," he said, his voice low but carrying. "You want to explain to me what exactly is going on here?" Reeves straightened like a kid caught with his hand in the cookie jar, who still thinks he can talk his way out of it. "Sir, I responded to a trespass call," he said. "Possible squatters in 3B. I was in the process of verifying residency and securing the location when things escalated." Harris held out his hand. "Is that the documentation the woman provided?" he asked. Reeves reluctantly handed him the deed. Harris read it slowly, eyes tracking the lines, pausing at my name, at sole owner, at the property address. You could feel the hallway holding its breath. He looked up at me. "Ms. Hall." He said, "You're the building owner." "Yes, sir." I said, "I am. I bought it legally. That document is real. My kids live here. My tenants live here." He turned back to Reeves. The disappointment on his face was worse than if he'd started yelling. So he said carefully, "You threatened to remove the landlord from her own building in front of her children, with no warrant, based solely on an unverified phone call." Reeves opened his mouth, closed it, then tried again. "Sir, I was doing my job." No, Harris cut in that same low tone that somehow got even quieter. "You were doing what you wanted and calling it your job. There's a difference, and now this entire hallway is recording it." He stepped closer. "Hand me your badge." I swear you could feel the air change when he said that. Phones tilted forward, fingers tightened. Jordan's eyes went huge. Maya's grip on my arm tightened. Reeves stared at him. "Sir, with all due respect." "Hand me your badge," Harris repeated. After a long moment, Reeves reached for his chest fingers, shaking just enough to show this wasn't how he thought his night was going to go. He unpinned the badge and held it out. That was supposed to be the climax, right? The big satisfying moment where the bad cop gets called out. The community stands up and justice lands cleanly. But that was just the end of Chapter 1, because right as his badge left his shirt, a scream tore through the building from downstairs. It was sharp, high-panicked. Glass shattered. Somebody's voice, Mrs. Crowley, I found out later, yelled, "There's a man. He just ran out of the storage room. He broke the window." You know those moments where everyone in a room gets yanked into the same direction at once? That was it. Harris spun toward the stairs. "Everybody stay here," he ordered. "Already moving. Lock your doors if you need to. No one leaves the building." Tanya turned to me. "You and the kids back inside now," she said. I shook my head, pulse roaring in my ears. "He came out of the storage room," I said. "That's my storage room. That's where I keep all the building files." Marcus stepped forward immediately. "I'm going with her," he said. "She's not walking into that alone." Tanya hesitated for half a second, then nodded once. "Stay behind the lieutenant. Don't touch anything until he says it's okay." We shoved down the stairs fast, but careful. The further down we went, the colder it felt, not because the temperature had actually changed, but because the building felt like it was holding its breath in a different way now. At the first-floor landing, the hallway window was shattered inward glass, scattered across the tile like icy confetti. Mrs. Crowley was standing in her doorway in her robe hand, at her chest, shaking and pointing. "He ran that way," she stammered. "Tall man, gray hoodie. He came right out of your storage room." "Denise, I saw him. I swear I saw him." "What's inside that room?" Harris asked me. "All my records," I said. "Copies of every lease, maintenance logs, payment histories, correspondence, the building sale, contract, everything that proves who owns what and who lives where. The whole paper trail of this place." Marcus turned to look at me, eyes wide. So if someone wanted to undo the sale, or find something they could twist to take the building back, they'd start in that room, I finished. The radio on Harris's shoulder crackled. "Suspect fleeing eastbound, male, gray hoodie. Tall, running fast, we're in pursuit." I didn't even have to think about it. I knew exactly who it was. "Wait," I said, voice dropping. Everybody turned to me. "I think I know who he is," I said. "It's not random. It's Owen." "Owen, who?" Harris asked. "Owen Mercer," I said. "The former owner's son. He used to manage this place before I bought it. There's a court order that says he's not allowed on the property anymore. He fought the sale, tried to scare tenants into signing new leases. Told me to my face this building should stay in the right hands. He's been trying to find a way to challenge the paperwork ever since." Tanya let out a low breath. "So he calls in a fake tip. She said plays into an officer's bias. Gets the police to clear the hallway and corner you upstairs. And while everyone's busy watching you, he breaks into the one room that holds the proof that this building is yours." There it was. The twist. The cop at my door was the distraction. The real threat came in through the broken glass. If it were you, and you realized in that moment that racism wasn't just about one bad cop, but about how someone with money and resentment could weaponize an entire system against you, what would that feel like in your chest? They secured the storage room. Drawers were yanked open. Files scattered, a lamp knocked over and still glowing on its side. Owen had been thorough, but he'd also been rushed. Half the binders were on the floor, some were halfway pulled from shelves, but on the top shelf, pushed back a little, my thick black binder labeled Linden Sale Contract was still there. I grabbed it and held on so tight my fingers hurt. Outside, tires squealed. A voice crackled over the radio. "We've got him. Suspect in custody. Heading back your way." We went back to the front of the building. By then, the block had filled up. More squad cars, an ambulance that wasn't needed, a news van, neighbors from across the street pretending not to stare and failing completely. Camera lights threw weird shadows on the brick. They walked Owen up in handcuffs, hoodie-torn face flushed with equal parts anger and embarrassment. The second he saw me, he leaned forward and spat the words like poison. "This building isn't yours," he said. "It was never meant to be yours. You think signing a few papers changes anything?" Something in me snapped back into place. "Those papers kept you from doubling everybody's rent," I said. "They kept Mrs. Crowley from being pushed out of the place she's lived in for 30 years. They kept families from losing their homes. So yeah, Owen, they change a lot." Harris stepped between us. "Mr. Mercer," he said, his voice now back in full official mode. "You are under arrest for breaking and entering, filing a false police report, and violating a court injunction. And considering how many people saw you and how much of this is on camera, I'd say your lawyer's going to have a long week." Owen tried to glare past him, like he still had some kind of moral high ground, but it just wasn't there anymore. Not with my kids watching. Not with the tenants lined up behind me. Not with the city seal glowing faintly on the deed still in Tanya's hand. A few minutes later, 2 internal affairs officers led Reeves out of the building. No badge, no swagger left. He wasn't in cuffs, but the walk of shame is still a walk of shame. He had to pass right by my neighbors, the same people he probably thought would nod along and let him do whatever he wanted, because he had a uniform on. Instead, they watched him go with a mix of anger and cold disappointment. He walked through a tunnel of people who saw him. Marcus moved closer to me and my kids. "You all right?" he asked quietly. "I don't know yet." I answered honestly. "But I'm standing. Good start. Stick around because what happened next will blow your mind." That's what I would tell you if this were just a story you clicked on by accident. Because yeah, the arrests were dramatic, the badge coming off was satisfying. The twist with Owen was wild. But the part that stuck with me most happened after the lights dimmed. Harris came back over, looking more human now that the immediate crisis was over. "Ms. Hall," he said, "I know an apology from me doesn't erase what happened, but I am sorry. This should not have gone down like that. I appreciate that I said, and I meant it. But I need more than sorry. I need to know this isn't just going to disappear into some file cabinet." "It won't," he said. "There'll be an internal investigation, formal review. Probably suspensions. Maybe worse. You have every right to file a complaint or sue. And if you decide to, you've got witnesses from 1A to 5B. My job is to make sure the process runs the way it's supposed to, not the way it did tonight." "You saw the bias," I said softly. "You saw how quick he was to believe I didn't belong here." "I did," he said. "And I won't pretend this is the first time I've seen something like it. But I'm not letting this one slide." Tanya stepped up beside him. "I'll be filing on her behalf," she said. Matter of fact. Civil rights violations, unlawful intimidation, misuse of authority, emotional distress. The whole list. And yes, Lieutenant, I'll include your cooperation in my filing, so do your part." He gave a little half smile. Fair enough. Eventually the cars left. The cameras got packed up. The news crew did their quick stand-up segment about a tense confrontation on Linden Avenue and moved on to the next assignment. The building got quiet again, but it didn't go back to normal. Neighbors didn't just retreat behind their doors. Not this time. Mrs. Crowley hugged my kids like they were her own grandbabies. The guy from 4B handed over his phone number and said, "If you need someone to testify, I saw the whole thing." Rita promised to send Tanya every second of her footage. A few people I'd only ever nodded at in the lobby stood close like the hallway was suddenly a shared living room we'd all paid for. Later that night, after I'd triple-checked the locks, after I'd put the deed and the sale contract into a fireproof box, Just for my own peace of mind, I sat at the edge of my bed and watched my kids sleep. Their faces looked younger again in the dark. No police lights, no phones, no voices raised. I thought about the first day I walked into that building as the owner, keys in my shaking hand. My name on the papers, the old owner's son, simmering in a corner as his father signed it over. I thought about the tenants who'd pulled me aside and whispered, "Thank you." We didn't know how much longer we could hold out. I thought about all the late nights scraping through receipts and forms and phone calls, trying to do things right, trying to make this place a little safer, a little fairer, a little more like home. Then I thought about how fast one phone call and one biased officer had turned me into a suspect in my own hallway. So let me ask you, how much proof should one person have to carry just to exist peacefully where they live? An ID, a lease, a deed, a video, a crowd of witnesses, all of the above. And what about the people who don't have neighbors like mine? Or a Marcus who knows a Tanya, or a lieutenant who is willing to say you were wrong to his own officer? What happens in those buildings on those blocks, in those apartments where the cameras don't come, and the story doesn't make it into your feed? Power is a funny thing. Reeves had a badge, a gun, a radio, and a system that's used to backing his version of events. Owen had money entitlement and a deep belief that property should stay in the right hands. His. Me, I had a deed, a community, and 2 kids who were watching very closely to see if the adults in their world were going to do the right thing. That night, for once, the truth won in real time. But it needed a whole choir of voices to back it up. This is where I leave it with you. Do you think what happened that night was just one bad cop? Or do you see how easy it was for a resentful ex-owner to turn the system into his personal eviction squad? If you were standing in that hallway, would you have stepped out with your phone? Or would you have closed your door and hoped it wasn't your turn next? Be honest with yourself, and then be honest in the comments. Tell me what part of this story hit you the hardest. Was it the first knock, the way he talked to my son, the moment the badge came off? Or the twist, when we realized the real criminal had broken in downstairs? Have you ever been asked to prove you belonged in a place that was already yours, at work, at school, in a store, at your own home? I want to hear it. Share your experience, your anger, your questions, even if you disagree with me on what this means. Do you think the system can be fixed from the inside, or do you think it's too far gone? I'm listening. And if you felt this story, if even one moment made your chest tighten or your hands clench, do me a favor, hit like, subscribe, share it with someone who needs to understand that this isn't just a headline. It's real nights in real homes with real kids watching. The more we talk about it, the harder it is for anyone to pretend it isn't happening. I'm Denise. This is my building. This is my family. And I'm going to keep standing in my own doorway and saying I belong here, whether anybody in a uniform believes it or not.